Fuentes debates some gay leftist.
All right, so the next subject that we agreed upon was Christianity. But to make it interesting, Nick,
Jubilee?
We can
Jubilee guy?
be more specific. We could talk about
Fuck
Christian
off.
nationalism.
Sure.
Is this the Jubilee guy?
Okay, so the subject will be, is Christian nationalism good or bad?
Okay.
And, well, let's start with Nick because we started with Dean last time. We'll do let's do 3-minute intro. I'll give you a 1-minute warning, and then I'll give Dean a 3-minute intro, and then we'll go free flowing. Then if it's interruptions, we'll time it. But I think it was good so far. But Nick, take the floor in 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, I believe that America should have a religious government. We should have a Christian Catholic government. And, you know, we have to face the fact that liberalism has failed. And the best example that liberalism is failing is that we're not having enough kids. The society, the civilization that doesn't have kids will cease to exist, and it will lose, and it is losing. Liberalism around the world is receding, and these more ancient, tribal, perennial cultures are thriving. Islam is the fastest growing religion. China is on the rise. Tribalism, racialism, all these things, all these revanchist, historic ideologies are on the rise.
So he's already, like, I feel like these sweeping statements are so stupid. The Chinese birth rate's a fucking issue as well. Okay.
And they're all beating back liberalism because liberalism is weak. It is ineffectual. It's causing all kinds of perversity, degeneracy. People are not having kids. It's just sort of like anti-human and inimical to the human body. So, I mean, in addition to Catholicism and Christianity being true, liberalism is clearly bankrupt. Liberalism is clearly having a hard time. I think we should replace our state religion of liberalism with the state religion of Christianity. And I'm interested to see where Dean wants to take it, because obviously it's a huge topic, but I think we should have a Catholic country, not a liberal atheist one.
Yeah, I think that there's...
By the way, the birth rate for Iran has been declining as well. It's just like any nation that does well in terms of industry or urbanization or whatever, like or economic growth, is going to have a declining birth rate. So, okay. So still a bit higher. 15 births per 1,000 people. Europe, it's 9.8. But it's not exactly... It's like a constant decline for Iran as well. But, okay.
Different ways that a conversation about Christian nationalism can go. I mean, I've debated people on Christian nationalism before that will concede even if Christianity's false, right? We should still be, a country that upholds Christian nationalism because it promotes better outcomes. But I think there's a couple points there that you made. I just like to respond to real quick about declining birth rates, immigration. That's crazy. Then about, a couple of the other points that you brought up. I particularly think that Christian nationalism is bad because it doesn't allow us to effectively legislate. Given like the Christian religion, right, we are led to believe that particular things are wrong because God said so. You said that you're a Catholic. I think in the Catholic faith, you'll kind of have a different range on how bad things are. Something can be a mortal sin, a venial sin. But something that I'd say here that is a very absurd conclusion given Christian nationalism is shit like blasphemy. So like blasphemy, as defined by the Bible, is the worst sin that anyone can commit. Does that mean that people should go to jail for life for blasphemy? Well, I don't know, because we know that people should go to jail for life for murder, and if blasphemy is worse than murder, and we're operating under a system in a society with a government that legislates on the basis of the Bible and these foundational beliefs as prescribed by Christianity, are we going to start sending people to jail for blasphemy too? I don't see how you'd be able to respond to that. I don't. And then like a couple other things that we could say here. The Bible promotes very harmful bad beliefs. I mean, 1 Samuel 15:3, God tells Saul and his men to genocide the Amalekite men, women, and girls. I bet if I was to engage in a conversation with this guy specifically about 1 Samuel 15:3, he'll end up saying that sometimes genocide's okay. Leviticus 25 verses 44 through 46. God tells the Israelites that they can own the non-Israelites as human property for life. I bet if I was to have a conversation with this guy about that topic, he'd end up saying that no, slavery hasn't always been wrong, alongside other things, right? So we could talk about how Christianity is false.
The Israelites.
We could talk about how it doesn't allow us to effectively legislate. We could talk about the absurdities that are already present in the Bible. But one last point that I'd like to bring up is if you're going to make an argument on the basis of the efficacy and the outcomes in which it would generate in society, which seemingly you started to there, well, what if we find another religion that generates better outcomes than the one that you hold to? Okay, so the reason that you want a Christian nation is because it will promote human well-being and happiness. People are going to be having more kids and following these commandments. They'll be doing good. No degeneracy, none of that shit. Well, what if I told you that the LDS church had even better outcomes than the Catholic church? Would you all of a sudden be in support of an LDS-led state? Probably not. Okay, right? So
who the fuck does this guy? This guy's like 19 years old. Who's he been talking to anticipate these arguments? What the fuck? Okay.
Another contradiction on its own. So feel free to kind of pick and choose there, respond to the point that you want, take it away.
Yeah, so you said about birth rates or immigration. Well, here's the problem. Okay, one, the people that have liberalism are killing themselves. Okay, so the people that invented liberalism, that live in liberal societies, literally and figuratively are killing themselves. They're committing suicide. They're dying.
The guy that you worship.
Okay, are you going to interrupt me like 30 seconds into my rebuttal? That's crazy. No confidence in liberalism. They commit suicide. They die from despair. They're addicted to drugs, all kinds of things. They're all dying over there. Okay, we're dying in America. We're dying in Europe. And by the way, these people come from non-liberal or illiberal societies, and then their birth rate goes down. So even if you wanted to argue, oh, well, like, we could salvage liberalism with an endless supply of immigration from illiberal societies that have kids, when they get here, their birth rate goes down. And these are not liberal people. They come from illiberal places like China or Africa or Latin America. They come here, they assimilate, and within a few generations, the birth rate goes down because liberalism is suicidal. With regard to the question about efficacy and outcomes, I'm not arguing that we should have the religion with the best efficacy. I said liberalism has failed. And we know it's failed because it's committing suicide. So clearly liberalism as a system is not working. And that's why, it's such a radical notion. People think that we would have blasphemy laws or religious laws. They think it's a radical notion. It's unthinkable. The current system must be replaced. It's an imperative. It's not a question of, whether or how or anything like that. It simply must be because it will cease to exist. And so that's really the crux of the argument.
Assuming that all these ideas can only be inherited through fucking birth, it seems like liberalism is self-perpetuated fairly well, despite birth rates going down, because we can educate people. We can have migrants who become educated and compatible with the liberal system as well, especially in America, because in America, the only people who are threatening the liberal order are fucking white people. It's right-wing, white, fat fucking Republicans who can't even climb a wall. It's a bit of a fallacy there to assume that just because liberals stop having babies, then that means that the other groups who had babies won't also grow up to have liberal values or to be compatible with them.
Be Catholicism. It's because Catholicism.
Also, liberalism doesn't even need people to be liberal, really. Like, you can have people with illiberal ideas and illiberal beliefs, but again, like, it feels like liberalism is quite good at sustaining people who have those kinds of alternate beliefs. Because, for example, like, no matter how popular it seems like the radical anti-liberal left becomes, like, they can still, most of them actually do function as liberals. Like, they don't challenge the system, they don't break the law, they don't fucking, they do their protests, but ultimately, like, from cradle to grave, they live perfectly functional within the boundaries set by the society that they grew up in. It's actually the same with a lot of right-wingers as well. Most Trump supporters didn't actually try to overthrow the Capitol, so.
System is true, but the point I'm trying to make is for people that say, it's so radical that we
especially comparing it to the fucking instability of what, like, the Islamic world, like Iran, where everyone fucking hates the regime and they have to suppress nationwide riots every few fucking years because of how despised they are, and like how many people have to leave the country and end up becoming the most anti-Iran voices in the world. Like, for example, like, if someone's going to hate Iran because they're Iranian and they don't live in Iran, like, that's that person's going to hate Iran. China, really, with their, like, restive population and them having to give union rights and shit like that, like, a decade ago, because their growing middle class is becoming a lot more frustrated with the system as well. It's like, it's comparing it to, there's a kind of, like, unspoken comparison that Fuentes is making where he's comparing liberalism to a perfect self-perpetuating society.
Would go backwards. I would say we went backwards with liberalism, as evidenced by the fact that it's not even reproducing itself. And that's a huge problem. With regard to the stuff about the Old Testament, I mean, look, the Catholic Church, Christians today are not in favor of genocide or slavery. If you want to get into that, this is just like new atheism 101. Are you an atheist? Are you an atheist or something?
I'm an agnostic, but I wouldn't particularly use these verses in the Bible to say that your religion is false. I use these verses in the Bible to say that your religion is absurd. To say that your religion is false.
I just wanted to ask you that, and then let me finish the last point. So it's very funny when atheists who have no objective source of morality, it's like, You know, their morality is something like, hey man, just leave everybody alone. What if I disagree? What if my morality says, well, I want to kill everybody or something? What if the majority of people said our morality says, well, we want to harm and we want to rape and we want to do this and that? An atheist has no God that says, well, you know, so-and-so has the authority to say this is correct. That's a problem. And yet they have a problem with blasphemy laws. It is good to have a God that is a source of authority, that gives us our morality, that is unquestionable. With regard to the Old Testament, if you want to get into the debate about, you know, what's bad, I would start with the question of how do you know what's bad? You claim that certain things are bad. You don't know where good and bad comes from. And how do we know the good and bad are even real? If we're all material, if we're only atoms and we don't have souls, why does it matter what happens to any of us? I mean, what is justice? Is there such a thing as the conceptual? If there is only matter, where is the conceptual? Can we see it? Can we feel it? Is it located somewhere?
You want to respond to those points?
So, well, and I'm making a point here. I'll wrap it up quickly. So for an atheist to point to the Old Testament and say, well, you know, how could...
It's not a really good argument either, because even Fuentes is making secular arguments for why liberalism should go. He said because it's not self-perpetuating. It destroys itself because of birth rates. Like, again, that's not really like a religious argument for liberalism. Human survival is a... You can argue that you don't need religion to be even like a moral realist. You can say, I think the argument would be that humans are evolved to, like every other species, we're evolved to have like survival mechanisms. And it seems to be that what separates humans from a lot of other animals is that our survival mechanism, our most important one, is communication and cooperation. Like, we're a collective species. That's why we are 1,000,000 times more than the sum of our parts when we come together as a collective. We can build cities and roads and fucking sewage systems and all kinds of beautiful things. And the fact that we can do that depends on the most people being able to be taken care of, or be able to survive, so that they can provide their services to the other humans. So the point of being a collective is that we all have to do okay. We can't have one person just stomping over the rest of the collective, because then we wouldn't survive. So you could argue that in a sense that is an objective morality, at least as much as possible. It's objective as much as possible in that our own survival as human beings depends on it. It depends on cooperation. And if you logically think about it, if we have a society that can maximize human happiness for as many people as possible, then logically you would want policies that are most likely to achieve that. That's why it makes logical sense to have all people are created equal, that people shouldn't be slaves, because otherwise, if we start enslaving people, then very much like the whole value of humans being maximizing their happiness is very much hindered, because a huge chunk of the human population is having their happiness absolutely like strained. Anyway, okay.
A God who does these things be so immoral? I would say to the godless, what is moral, and who are we if we're not just stardust being rearranged? I mean, slavery, these things, these are conceptual. It can only exist with a real philosophical viewpoint, not with this kind of lame, like, Sky Daddy isn't real sort of stuff. So, you know, there's just a lot of assumptions there that kind of need to be interrogated.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what needs to be interrogated is the fact that you asked me, well, what do I do if a group of people likes to murder, rape, and kill others? What if God said that?
Wow.
You know, I think that's a question that we need to ask.
Then we would have to do it.
Wait, really? If God told you to rape and kill a baby, would you do it?
Well, God would never do that, because God is good and those things are evil.
Okay, so raping and killing is evil. So when he commanded people to kill the babies in the Amalekite in 1 Samuel 15:3, that was evil?
God is telling us to rape and kill babies right now?
So specifically about killing, in 1 Samuel 15:3, he did command Saul and his men to kill the Amalekite babies.
Rape babies? He told them to rape babies?
No, to kill babies.
Well, yeah, then if I were one of those guys, I would have done it, but not rape them.
Okay, so if God commanded you to kill a baby today...
killing babies, okay, yeah. But raping them, I'm sorry. I feel like you've crossed the line there, bucko. So you would disobey God if he said rape. Oh, but God would never do that. God's good. Well, why did he kill them? But he didn't say rape them. Fucking little goblin.
Would you
Bro.
Yes.
You know what? Whenever I argue with these Christians, I just try to, I don't really care that much about the Bible and all this shit. So I avoid that. I just try to address them on more like rational terms. I don't know if I need to, though. I think sometimes to argue with Christians, you actually do just need to bait them with the most insane shit because they'll accept it and they'll just let themselves, fuck, it's actually much easier than I thought. Okay.
Okay, so why would you kill a baby but you wouldn't rape a baby?
Because that would be cruel or something.
Wait, is killing a baby not cruel?
In the Old Testament, it worked differently.
No, I'm
That's
talking
a
about,
fallen world.
you particularly said that you would kill a baby today if God asked you, but you
If God
wouldn't
told
rape,
us, yeah.
rape a baby if God asked you. So how
Not
can we
rape.
kill a baby today but not rape a baby?
Because the context of the Old Testament is that it's a fallen world. And that's the context you're talking about. You said that in the Old Testament,
Dude, we're not
God
talking
said
about
to-
dude, please
Hang on.
answer
Yeah,
my question.
We
This is a
literally
damning
are.
non-answer.
Well, if
You
we're not
told me
talking about,
today-
wait. If we're not talking about the
Give me
Old
30
Testament, what are
seconds.
we talking about?
About the fact that you told me today, if God commanded you to kill a baby, you would do it. And then I followed that up by asking you, if God commanded you to rape a baby, would you do it? And you
But
said
God
no,
wouldn't do that because
that's
it's evil.
cruel. Okay, so killing a baby today, you would do if God commanded it, but raping a baby today, you wouldn't do because God wouldn't command it.
Well,
because
you-
it's evil.
first of all-
are you making the
First of
implication that
all-
killing a
First of
baby
all,
today
He's
isn't
so
evil?
unfazed. Look at him go.
No. What you said is that in
Okay,
the
so
Old
then you
Testament...
wouldn't do that either, right?
Well, hang on.
It's seemingly a
Let's
contradiction.
rewind. Let's rewind because you said in the Bible, God says to rape babies. Can you just
No, I
retract
said
that? Because
kill
that never
babies.
happened. No,
No,
if you
I said
rewind...
kill
Got a cling.
Yeah, okay. People can rewind the clip. You said kill
Yeah.
and rape babies because you got to and rape
we'll
people
clear
because you
this
got
up
a
so
little
easily.
ahead of yourself. Because you got a
Nick,
little ahead of
we'll clear this
yourself.
up so,
That
Nick, I
never
will literally
happened.
clear this up so easily.
Okay.
If I said God commanded Saul and his men to rape babies in 1 Samuel 15:3, I misspoke. In
Okay,
1 Samuel
thank you,
15:3,
yeah.
God commands Saul and
But
his
see,
men
that's the
to kill
problem.
babies.
Yes, he misspoke. Take it. Take the misspeak, Nick. Take it. You need any help you can get right now. Come on. He's literally fucking 8 feet in the fucking grave, and someone has offered him this tiny little piece of straw, and he's like, he misspoke. Get it. Fuck. I don't even think he misspoke. Yeah, he didn't. He probably didn't. But listen, Nick needs all the help he can get, okay?
But you are not answering my question. This is a
I
damning
am,
non-answer.
I am.
Every single person watching this stream can see that you said if God commanded you to kill a baby today, you said you would do it. Can you affirm
Can we be
that
serious?
fact?
Can we be serious for a second?
We are being dead serious. Can you affirm the fact that you said if God told you to kill a baby, you
Can
do
we
it?
be serious? Can we grow
No,
up?
we
Why
can't.
won't you
You're
answer
going
my
to kill
question?
babies, bro.
Well, because we're talking about the Old Testament, are we not?
Dude, we're talking about today. How many times do I need to
Talk
say
about human
that?
beings.
You're talking about the Old Testament. You're citing the Old Testament. You're talking about a specific verse in the Old Testament.
Oh my God, this
you
is
can
crazy.
look. You can giggle,
No,
but
I
can
specifically
we
asked you-
confirm that we're talking about the Old Testament? Is that correct?
That
What
is
are we
not
talking
correct.
about?
Exactly. I'll tell you exactly what we're talking about. We are talking about the fact that I asked you a damning hypothetical question. I asked you
It's
if
not.
God
It's a
could,
cheap,
one moment. Do you mind if I have
it's
30
a cheap
seconds?
context. No. It's
You're
a cheap
interrupting me
context
because you don't want me to
denial.
talk because you know that you're losing.
Yeah, because the Old Testament says bad things in it. I know. I'm a new atheist, and I just discovered. Here's my answer to your question, if you allow me to answer it. I know you want a cheap gotcha question, but let's add a little context. The Old Testament
Please,
takes
explain
place in a fallen world. We live in a fallen world because we have free will. Okay, God created human beings. Human beings disobeyed God and sinned. Because we disobeyed God and sinned, we have the penalty of death, war, shame, guilt, pain at birth, all these things. In the fallen world, people kill. In the fallen world, people kill, people lie, cheat, steal. Cain kills Abel. In the world, the fallen world, before Jesus Christ arrived, it was a world with slavery and warfare and iniquity. It is in this context that
God said
God
kill
commanded
babies?
the chosen people to kill certain tribes to establish their survival, to secure a line for the coming of the Messiah.
Why do they have to kill
God
babies?
does not approve of killing because it says in the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill. God does not approve of rape because it says, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, and so on and so forth. So God obviously does not support killing, raping. Oh, would you kill and rape a baby? No. But in the Bible, God prescribes laws and specific actions at the beginning of the world, which was fallen without Christ, without a Savior, in sin, for the survival of the chosen people. So the rules worked a little bit differently in the Old Testament. It doesn't mean that, and of course, taking a life in and of itself, hang on. There's a difference everybody knows between killing and murder. If I go and murder you for no reason, that's immoral. If I kill in self-defense or self-defense of my children, it's a different story.
If I kill before
God
because God
commanding
told
the
me.
people of the Old Testament is an extraordinary exception based on the fallen old world. That's one. Two, when Jesus
allow me to
Christ
speak.
arrives, He fulfills the law and saves people from hell. Before Jesus Christ arrived, nobody could even go to heaven, and it was a world of iniquity. And Jesus Christ changed and created this modern world that we're living in.
I hear you.
So now here's the thing. God is the authority. If God commands us to, look, I know it's a complicated issue. You can't fit it into a TikTok where you do the Destiny drive-by and say, Trump's making your grocery prices higher. But it's actually a complicated issue. We're talking about evil, the existence of evil.
He's getting frustrated. Oh, no. He's yapping. He's just buying all the space he can to get himself out of this debate.
So does that mean that God is not an authority? Of course not. God is an authority. Would God command us to do those things today? Probably not. But if he did, in a hypothetical scenario, we'd have to trust God if we truly believe in God. Otherwise, you would say something like, we know more than God, or God is not good, or we're better than God, and that negates the concept of a God or good itself. So that's my answer to your, so when you say killing babies, it ties into like abortion policy. It's just like cheap, low IQ, left-wing bullshit. But anyway, go ahead.
Cool. Thank you. So I hear everything that you just said. I will give that a great response. I sure did. But before I give that a response, I wanted to take a brief moment to go back to the question that I was attempting to get you to answer prior. I understand that you just kind of gave me the story of the Old and New Covenant. We had different rules before, the Messiah came back down, created the New Covenant, whatever. I get it. Thank you. Okay? But the question that I asked you was, if God commanded you to kill a baby, would you do it? You said yes. I then asked you, Nick Fuentes, if God commanded you to rape a baby, would you do it? And you should, no, that's too cruel. If you'd like to take 15 seconds to kind of clear up that gap, like, does that make the implication that killing a baby isn't
I answered
cruel?
the question. I answered the question.
You didn't.
Okay. Is this a debate about Christian nationalism, or is this like a weird new atheist? By the way, why do you think killing is wrong? Where do you get that information from?
So first of all, I don't think that killing's inherently wrong. I think that murder is wrong. Okay. The unjustified
okay. So you agree with me then?
Right. And then what I'd say here about murder is that's just going to be driven given my intuition.
Well, no, because I wouldn't make any exceptions. I don't think there's any exception to the rule of killing a bunch of babies for no reason.
I'm a subjectivist. We all know this, but I think you are too. Would you agree with me?
Subjectivist.
Would you agree with me that objectivism can be defined as like a stance independent, like truth?
It's an independent truth? What did you say? I didn't hear you.
Like a stance independent truth. That's what it means. For
a stance independent truth?
Yeah.
If Hamas are hiding behind them, you can, right? Well, you're not targeting the baby, then you're targeting Hamas. Yeah, fuck. I think even then, there probably needs to be a shitload of Hamas going on before you can let a baby become collateral damage, I'd imagine. But if you can help it, what a stupid question. Is that what they did in the Old Testament? Is that what we're comparing this to? But that's true of any war. It's not even if it's Hamas.
Of independent truth, or that there is independent truth?
Okay, wow.
The sentence construction doesn't make sense.
Okay, so like in philosophy, right? When we're referencing terms such as moral objectivism or moral subjectivism, we define objectivism given when I say murder is wrong, that is true independent of any stance, of any act, or of any mind. Okay, when I say
I understand what you're saying. I don't understand the construction. I'm not. You're like mumbling to yourself. Yeah, I believe. Subjectivism is that there's an independent truth. Yes.
Okay, so is morality independent of God?
No, because God is morality. God is good.
So a morality is subject to God.
Okay. Ooh, could God create a box so heavy he couldn't lift it? Yeah, that's great. So if you believe
that would be a contradiction. I didn't give you a contradiction. I just showed you that you're a moral subjectivist.
I know. Thank you. So
that's cute, huh?
So where do you believe that killing is wrong then? Now, so you believe it's subjective. You don't believe it's absolutely wrong.
Yeah. Right? Oh, what's that? What's that, Aiden?
10 minutes, guys.
Great, yeah. So I just
Aiden
gotta
Ross.
give you a little bit of an overview of my stance here on morality. So, metaethically, I'm just gonna be a subjectivist, a relativist. When we like to reference like why I think things are wrong, it's just gonna be driven my intuitions. We could talk about different moral frameworks. I myself am what is called a threshold deontologist, meaning that I believe that particular things can be always wrong, but meanwhile we should consider the consequences of others. It's pretty interesting.
Is Holocaust wrong?
Yeah, the Holocaust was wrong.
Objectively?
No, because objective truths in the context of morality doesn't exist. Nothing.
In your opinion, it's wrong
because that standard doesn't exist.
In your opinion, it's wrong.
And in accordance with my index standard, it's wrong. Yeah, but I mean, just saying, you believe in subjectivism, but I'm gonna like counter that by asking you, is it objectively wrong? That doesn't really achieve anything. I could literally.
What is your qualification?
Was the Holocaust objectively wrong?
Of course, it was wrong. Of course, it was objectively wrong.
But you just agreed with me that morality is subject to God.
Because morality is God. It's identity, not subjectivity.
Wait, God is identical to morality?
Yes, God is good. God is the good.
Okay, so when I say that like hugging your mom is good, I'm just saying that hugging your mom is God?
Yes.
Okay, so can you just say that for me? Like every single time you kiss your wife, that's a really God thing to do?
Love is good. An act of love that expresses love is good. God is the good. God is being itself. We are participating in being.
Oh, wait, now we have some more issues here, because earlier you told me that God would never command you to like rape a baby because that's evil. But now you're saying that God is identical to goodness, meaning if God is all powerful in the sense that he could do anything that's logically possible and he's identical to goodness, why wouldn't he be able to tell you to rape a baby?
Did you say grape?
I did. TikTok words. I know.
Well, God also tells us that God's plan is very complex.
Why won't you answer my question?
Because these are just like low IQ.
No, that's not a low IQ point at all. We're literally talking about what you think goodness is, what its derivative, and how it would apply to your God. Actually, we could extrapolate this out to the problem of evil as a whole, right? Like you actually said earlier that you think that the Holocaust is objectively wrong. Would you say
if it happened at all, by the way? But yeah,
so
theoretically,
Aiden,
if it happened, in theory. No, I'm kidding. Of course it happened. Of course it happened.
Do you see what I'm talking about? Like, no, like, do you see who the fuck we're talking to, Aiden? Yeah, this guy's over here.
What did he say? I missed that.
You to like rape a baby because that's evil, but now you're saying that God is identical to goodness, meaning if God is all powerful in the sense that he could do anything that's logically possible and he's identical to goodness, why wouldn't he be able to tell you to rape a baby?
Did you say grape?
I did. TikTok words. I know.
Well, God also tells us that God's plan is very complex.
Why won't you answer my question?
Because these are just like low IQ.
No, that's not a low IQ point at all. We're literally talking about what you think goodness is, what its derivative, and how it would apply to your God. Actually, we could extrapolate this out to the problem of evil as a whole, right? Like you actually said earlier that you think that the Holocaust is objectively wrong. Would you say
if it happened at all, by the way? But yeah, theoretically, if it happened, in theory.
You see what I mean?
Of course it happened. Of course it happened.
Do you see what I'm talking about? Like, no, like, do you see who the fuck we're talking to, Aiden?
Okay.
Yeah, this guy's over here saying, if the Holocaust happened, but then he asked me if the Holocaust is objectively wrong. Get a load of this joker. So I just want to ask you a fucking quick question.
Get a load of this joker.
Oh yeah, get a load of this joker.
How about another joke? What do you get?
You need to unmute your mic.
Get a load of this.
You want to tell me another joke? Keep talking. I'm going to go ahead and ask you a question. What do you say, all things considered, that the Holocaust is wrong?
If it were real, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God.
It is. And it absolutely is.
You're so fucking spineless. How the fuck can you sit in front of 45,000 people and say that the most well-documented thing that has ever happened in history might not have happened? I want to ask you a question. How the fuck do you know that Jesus resurrected from the dead, but you don't know if the Holocaust happened?
Shroud of Turin.
Please answer that question.
Shroud of Turin.
Shroud of Turin? That's been 100%. Taken by the Shroud of Turin is a more reliable standard for evidence than the 250 independent sources that would justify that the Holocaust exists.
Listen, this isn't a Holocaust debate. Let's try to stay focused. This is a Christianity debate.
No, let's talk about it. The Shroud of Turin specifically, we had 4 different group of scientists take different parts of it. None of them could date it back to anything after 400 years AD.
I'm just saying it's a lot of people.
No. I want you to tell me how the fuck you know that Jesus rose from the dead with a lack of any historical evidence that exists from during his lifetime from a first-person experience.
Calm down. This is a factual debate.
The Holocaust happened.
This is a factual debate, Kamala. Tampon Tim.
Yeah, go for the emotions if you know that you're losing the argument.
1, Shroud of Turin. Impossible to create other than with Jesus ascending into heaven. That's 1. 2, what? All I'm saying is that's a lot of bodies. Unless we forgot the technology to cremate them. Look, I don't know. I wasn't there, and you weren't either.
The Shroud of Turin. Wait. So you're telling me that it was absolutely impossible for impossible for the Shroud of Turin to exist? Then please tell me why.
The facts.
Then please tell me why. Tell me why the earliest carbon dating on the Shroud of Turin that we've gotten from the material used to create the Shroud of Turin is like from 1200 AD.
That's not true. That's not even true.
It's either 400
you can fact check that. That's
AD.
not even true. They just did a new study on it and they proved it's 100% real.
They proved it's 100% real.
It's 100%. It's like super real. That's one.
Okay.
Two, we have secular historians that testify that Jesus was a real person and was crucified.
Yeah, we do.
Josephus, Tacitus. We also have...
Wait, Josephus isn't secular. Let's get our facts straight. He was a Jewish
he was
historian.
Jewish. Okay, he was Jewish. I mean non-Christian. Thank you for the clarification. Are we good?
Secular mean non-Christian?
Are we good? You know what I meant. I mean, if you were to say that a Christian source is biased, then arguably a non-Christian source would be unbiased. That's the point. Josephus, Tacitus, but you also have the earliest versions of the gospel stories going back to the 1st century. The earliest fragments of it go back to the 1st century. And you have people that went to their death. That's part of why Christianity spread. They went to their death. The Christians were martyred, testifying that they saw a resurrected Jesus. Liars don't go to their death testifying that something happened if it didn't. Certainly not 11 out of 12 of them, or every single one of them. And that is the basis of how it spread in the ancient world. So, I mean, there's that. There's the Shroud of Turin. There's non-Christian historians. There's the fragments of the gospel.
Yeah, so
there's the prophecies that are fulfilled by Jesus in the New Testament.
So the Shroud of Turin, that shit just goes straight out the fucking window. We have carbon dated it. Not a piece of it dates back to when Jesus was alive in accordance with Josephus and Tacitus, which you reported.
Carbon dating is flawed. And there was
it's earlier than it is, but we just don't know it.
And that's not true. Well, one, it's not real because carbon dating says that like dinosaurs are
Then how do we know that it was
from... I love him. I'm sorry. He's so good. It's incredible. Oh yeah, he doesn't think dinosaurs are real.
Two, there was a recent study done.
How do we know it's from Jesus?
There was a recent study that was done that showed that it literally would not even be possible using the technology at the time to create a forgery. So it had to have been created by something with luminosity that just didn't exist back then for it to imprint throughout the entire shroud. They didn't have that kind of technology back then.
Wait, I have a question.
It's impossible to create it any other way.
Do you mind if I ask you a question here? Okay, so I like this argument. Let's just go ahead and say that you're right. It was impossible to create without some sort of divinity. Jesus Christ is a prophet of the Islamic religion. Can you please give me any reason to believe that Christianity is true more so than Islam being true?
That's just a stupid question.
That this luminosity could be granted, either Islam being true or Christianity being true?
Let me ask you this question. Do you know what Muslims believe about Jesus Christ and the crucifixion? Can you tell me?
He's a prophet of God. He didn't actually die on the cross. Someone else stepped in his shoes.
So what was the Shroud of Turin? Do you know?
Oh, it was over him in the burial.
So how would we know Islam isn't true? Well, let's see. If he wasn't actually crucified, then how would they lay the shroud over his body and his soul leave to make the imprint? So you don't even know what you're talking about.
I mean, no, you don't know what you're talking about because given the Islamic religion,
to work it out on the fly, doesn't even know the order of how could the Muslim Jesus leave the Shroud of Turin imprint if he was never crucified and then therefore
because what did they say about the person that was crucified?
Hello.
What did they say about the person that was crucified? Who did he look like? Who did he present as?
But he wasn't Jesus, so he wouldn't have ascended into heaven and left the luminosity. It would be he was a lookalike.
Oh, that's terrible.
You could say that, but you don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
Normal people, they said it was a body double, someone who looked like Jesus. Normal people don't leave a luminous imprint on the shroud they put on them at the point of death. So the lookalike wouldn't have done that.
Wait, I'm just curious. Can you give me the study?
I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but it was recently completed.
Sure, I would love to.
You should investigate it. You'd probably become a Christian if you're being objective, even though you just fumbled and you don't know what Islam is.
Hey, real quick, let's do a 2-minute closing statement. We're going to start with you, Nick. Ready to get on to the next topic. Go ahead.
Sure. So, I mean, the good news is we just had a platform to demonstrate the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus. You do have real archaeological evidence like the Shroud of Turin. You have the Gospels. You have the secular historians. No serious historian would testify that Jesus wasn't real or didn't live or wasn't crucified. And if Christianity thread throughout the Roman Empire, it's because of the well-documented martyrdom of the disciples of the early church. If you would go to your death testifying that something, a lie or a fabrication didn't happen, then maybe you believe they all faked it. I think that you go to your death only if you saw something true. And even still, people won't tell the truth if they're afraid of the mafia. You'd only go to your death telling the truth if it was God in the flesh. So I think that's just all obvious. With all that being said, we should have a Catholic government. We all have a conscience. The moral law comes from God. It's also written on our hearts, and we know it. And that's where our intuition comes from. The subjective idea that we get from rationality or empiricism that murder is wrong, that rape is wrong, the same objections agnostics and atheists raise.
Even secular and rational arguments against murder all come from Christ. Don't know what to make of that one. Got him.
Against the Bible. And the thing is about the Old Testament, if people are turned off by that, it really just amounts to the problem of evil itself. Evil exists in the world that was created by a good God. This is answered by the philosophical concept of the privation of evil. Prior to the coming of Jesus Christ, it was a world without the good, and therefore it was evil, and thus there was no mercy, compassion, those sorts of things. But it's a very complicated topic. I hope people aren't turned off when they hear, bad things happen in the ancient world, therefore there can be no God. It's obviously false. So anyway, that's just the long and short of the whole Christian debate distilled.
Yeah, sure. So I'll go to give my closing statement now.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
First, about the Shroud of Turin, anyone watching, feel free to look up any of the multiple groups of scientists that have dated the Shroud of Turin. Not a single one of them have been able to place a date on the Shroud of Turin from a point when Jesus was alive. So that's automatically thrown out of the window. About Nick's second point there, specifically about the people that went to their deaths after seeing the quote-unquote resurrected Jesus. This is something we see in all religions. I want you to go ahead and look up Prophet Muhammad's grandson in the context of the Islamic religion. He was martyred because of his beliefs in his grandfather being a prophet of God. That's present always. If this makes a religion true, all religions would be true. About your third point about the historicity of Jesus Christ, we have no first-hand accounts about Jesus Christ or his life. I do think that he was a real man that lived and died via a crucifixion, but Josephus, Tacitus, all these people came long after he died, and I think it's crazy that you're going to sit here and say that we have sufficient historical evidence to justify that Jesus Christ died and resurrected from the dead, but we don't have historical evidence to justify that the Holocaust happened and 6 million Jewish people died. I can give you a source right now that 6 million people did die. In fact, I could give you 200. For everyone watching, look up holocaustcontroversies.blogspot.com. It will give you an index to publish evidence on mass extermination in Auschwitz in Germany. There will be over
Auschwitz. Americans.
200 sources there, much more abundant evidence than what he could ever give for the existence of Jesus Christ and the idea that he's our God. So already contradictory there. And about the last point about the problem of evil, you said that the privation of evil was the fact that there wasn't a lot of good before Jesus came. No, the privation of evil is an ontological status of evil. Okay? So you don't know what your philosophical terms mean. You're also confusing what the problem of evil is. Okay? Right? I would say my problem of evil would be the fact if God's all good, God's all perfect, and God's all powerful, then nothing evil should exist in the world that we live in. I wish that we could have a longer discussion about this, man. Get into philosophy, show you that you don't know shit. But I guess we're going to move on to the next topic.
Thank you, guys.
It's funny. Okay.
Damn, Fuentes got mogged. Bruh.